So yesterday we got our second iteration of the college football playoff rankings, but just because these rankings came out does not mean questions were answered, and in fact, more questions are now posed. So we have got to talk about it all, but before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you were most surprised about in the second iteration of the college football playoff rankings, and if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content, you don't want to miss any of it, and if you enjoyed this content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions, though they are small, are really massive to content creators such as myself in getting both picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. But with all that being said, let's jump straight into this, because last week after the first college football playoff rankings, I made a video talking about the surprise behind it all. And in that video, I posed two different ways to go about looking at the teams within the top 8. In one of my examples, I just simply assigned a point total for wins, losses, and then ranked wins. And then in the second example, I just looked at all the teams in the top 8 and then looked at who they had played, where those teams ranked in total offense and total defense, just to kind of try and gain an understanding as to why the College Football Playoff Committee had done the things that they had done. Fast forward a week, and many more questions are now posed. First and foremost, before we do any more, let's first talk about the top 10. At number 1, we keep Georgia. Number 2, Alabama. Number 3, Oregon. Number 4, Ohio State. 5, Cincinnati. 6, Michigan. 7, Michigan State. 8, Oklahoma. 9, Notre Dame. And 10, Oklahoma State. Now, for me, the most surprising thing about all of this comes in 6, 7, and 8. And let me explain. Because right now, when we're talking about this, Michigan just lost to Michigan State not long ago, yet Michigan State is ranked behind Michigan. And this is really a problem, because that means head-to-head wins don't matter as much as they probably should. Now look, I'm of the mindset that if you play each other and you both have one loss, in the case of Michigan and Michigan State, both teams only having one loss, the team that won should be ahead of the other. The interesting thing is that if Michigan and Michigan State would have played in week 1 or week 2, and the same result would have happened, I may have an easier time understanding putting Michigan ahead of Michigan State 6-7 weeks down the line, because there could have been massive signs of improvement. However, this head-to-head just occurred, and Michigan State came out on top. The only thing I can think in all of this is the committee is looking at it saying that Michigan's loss is better than Michigan State's loss. But they have the head-to-head win. And that right there was the biggest red flag when I first looked at this. The second area I was very surprised in is that Oklahoma didn't move up any. Because last week I talked about it. Oklahoma finds themselves in this weird dilemma where the top teams in their schedule are at the back portion. And so in my opinion, I think everything will all work itself out for the Sooners. But they're sitting here right now at 9-0, and in a weekend where many teams struggled, and then we even had some losses, for them to remain at 8 was a little bit puzzling to me. I thought with teams struggling and with teams losing, surely the Sooners would rise. Now, this is the only positive I can see for Oklahoma fans, is that with Baylor being ranked within the top 15, with Oklahoma State being ranked within the top 10, you still have the keys. If you go through the last 3 games of your schedule and win all 3 of those games, you'll have 2 ranked wins, both of which coming against teams ranked within the top 15, and that will be massive for the Sooners. And that's really the positive I see for the Sooners, is you still control your own destiny, or at least I don't see how you possibly couldn't, but I was very surprised to see the Sooners remain at 8. At number 1, Georgia makes complete sense. Look, the Georgia Bulldogs have been the most consistent team all year. The Georgia defense is stout. It is a very stout unit. I'm very excited to continue watching it play. And the Georgia offense is one that, even though I'm still intrigued about, has been able to answer the call anytime it needed to. Stetson Bennett has played good at times, but I'm very interested to see what the dilemma is going to be when JT Daniels fully gets the clear, and how that situation is going to be handled by Kirby Smart and the Dogs. Alabama maintaining number 2. Look, even as an Alabama fan, I have to admit I think that the Crimson Tide are very lucky to hang on to this number 2 spot. I've said this consistently. When the Crimson Tide are playing their brand of football and are playing up to their ability, they're unquestionably a top 4 team in my opinion. However, coming off of a bye week and going that flat against LSU, that even though LSU's talented, right? We all know LSU's talented. They recruit as well as anybody in the nation, but they had a lot of guys out, and you came out flat on a bye week against a team that you should have been able to handle. And it wasn't the fact that the game was close. I could have been fine with that game being close if Alabama would have played a good game and then LSU just had a stellar game. Bama's defense played well, sure, but Bama's offense didn't show up to play. And so I think, even though I firmly believe that the Crimson Tide are a playoff caliber team, being able to hang on to that number 2 spot after the week you just had is extremely lucky, and I think it's lucky for 2 reasons. One, they have a really good win against Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a legit opponent, and the Crimson Tide looked really good in that game. Maybe the best game they've played all year. And 2, for the same reason I thought Oklahoma would rise, is because when we look at the teams that we could rank 2 through 8, all of them struggled this past weekend. So I thought for sure with the college football playoff rankings coming out Tuesday, Oklahoma would rise, but I also think that Alabama has that to attribute to remaining at number 2, and they're very lucky for that. But simply put, the Crimson Tide must improve through the remaining stretch if they want to win out, but then take on Georgia, because I think that the Alabama Crimson Tide have the talent to go up against Georgia, but it's about playing consistent football, and that needs to be something that's shown, because right now that's been called into question, and that is not where you want to be in November. That is the last place you want to be in November. Oregon at number 3 is a bit of a head scratcher, because at the point where the committee is willing to throw away head-to-head wins, why wouldn't they rank Ohio State above Oregon? Sure, Oregon beat Ohio State at Ohio State, but through the early portions of this year, we were all talking about how Ohio State did not look like the Ohio State of old. But Ohio State has continued to get better throughout the process of this year. And their one loss comes to Oregon, who the committee deems to be a very good team, relative to Oregon's one loss coming up against Stanford, who has not been very good. So this list absolutely poses more questions than answers. And the committee's logic for doing a lot of the things that they've done, I just simply cannot understand. It's something that I was surprised last week, but even more surprised this week when they doubled down on some of their stances, especially the complete disregard for 2 teams that have played each other, both having the same record, but one of them holding the head-to-head win. That right there was a complete farce to how college football should be, in my opinion. But because of that, I'm very interested in hearing from y'all. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.